We are not live from Craven Street, as it's now called, which they took from Barrow and Toronto. And everyone's going to have a beer garden in 2022. We'll talk more about that with our guest later. Phil, it's been another week of Rugby League and things have been decided, such as Barrow winning the League One trophy thing. Is that the old championship trophy? I mean, it looked familiar. Not the championship trophy, the one that's at Wigan, but the one Wakefield won when they won the grand final in '98 against Fair.
I don't know, but did you think that the Super League shield that Catalan were presented was a slightly different one to the one we've had before?
It's not that big circle thing, is it? It's like an S and a. It's like a shield.
It's a shield.
It's a shield.
Yeah.
Congratulations to the Catalans. Congratulations to Toulouse. Congratulations to Barrow. They have all finished top of the pile. Toulouse, what's the French for legal action? I don't know. But, so let's start there. Lee 26, Wakefield 18. Much like the some sections of the media who've decided that Emma Raducanu won the tennis despite that bloke, who we shall not name, because they only live through their prism of the media and defending their mates at all costs, despite the fact it's an amazing achievement. Nothing to do with him. Lee Centurion's players did not beat Wakefield because of words in a programme by... you remember Ken Bates?
His name rings a bell.
Yeah.
Big portrait.
Would it be fair to call him Pound Shop Ken Bates, or would that be an unfair criticism of Mr. Beaumont? Bear in mind that if I owned the Rugby League club, I'd be very much in the mould of Beaumont and banning everyone and chucking them out. I'd be very much in that mould. So I don't want to be a hypocrite on this point. But the League players did not win because of words in a programme. They won because they were better than Wakefield on the day. And anyone who claims otherwise is a fool.
Yeah, I think that congratulations are due to all of the people that you've said, particularly T. Ritson scoring 7 tries in a game. It doesn't matter who the opposition are. On an afternoon like that, and again, I know we've credited Barrow with the work that they've done to get fans in. I know it was a big game for the club because promotion was right now. But again, nearly 2,000 fans there is absolutely fantastic. But the shadow that clouds everything at the moment, and it's probably even more important than the matches, because all we've really learned in Super League is that Hull can't score a point. The top 4's established in the positions that they're going to finish, and 3 teams now are fighting it out for the other 2, which will be settled in a shootout on Thursday and Friday this week. There's your Rugby League. Alex Walmsley is a Trojan.
That's great, yeah.
And again, this was a week where a lot of the clubs decided that they would exert their right to try out some of their squad players because there's bigger fish to fry within a couple of weeks. The atmosphere at Hull KR was fantastic, on and off the field. That was the big game. We almost got to the playoffs with Hull and Leeds at Magic. That was carried on to Hull KR and Castleford. Now it's Castleford and Warrington. Brilliant. Great atmosphere on Saturday night. There's your Rugby League. But overshadowing everything on Friday was the announcement as how we're going to take the game forward. Without going into every point that was mentioned, who's right, who's wrong, we were told in no uncertain terms by Ralph Rimmer that the main thing that was driving wherever we're going is unity. And then Derek Beaumont comes out, and I'm not really interested in his debate with his players. What I thought was far more concerning, particularly in the light of this so-called unity, is he's now threatening legal action to prevent relegation, and that his target is not only looking after his own club, which some would say has every right to do, although he did sign an agreement knowing exactly what the rules and regulations were when he signed it, but he's also aiming at Toulouse and that they shouldn't be promoted. And I'm thinking, you want us to write stories about how everybody's in this together. We've got to that moment where we all need to move forward as one. And the first person to break ranks within almost minutes of that announcement is saying, I'm going to sue. Are we unified or are we not? And if we're not, how on earth do we reconcile what Derek is saying? And we all know he's a little bit of a loose cannon. Again, like your point about investing credibility in somebody who perhaps doesn't deserve it on the tennis side, there has to be a question mark saying, how do you reconcile the picture we're being painted of how we move forward? And we can talk about whether we think that's got credibility or not, and somebody who immediately breaks ranks and wants to shatter that illusion. So the head is being scratched with Lee at the moment for me.
And as I said last week, and as I said all season, they didn't have to apply for that place, and they didn't have to accept the conditions on that place, but they did. And it is not as if, like, I know London 2 years ago, they haven't won. Well, they won 2 games. One of them after they've been relegated against a team who have been crap for most of 2021. Willie out again now, by the way. Just if you're wondering where the way public opinion's going, that's the world of coaching for you. So they've won 2 games all season. The nearest team to them has won 6. So they're so far behind. It's not even funny. Wins less than 10.
But again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I have a conspiracy theory. On Sky, when they show the league table, emblazoned in gold are Castellan Dragons. League leaders, congratulations. Brilliant. I think what they've achieved in the face of everything they've had to do over the last 18 months and what it's cost them, that is an astonishing achievement. And if we all take a step back, that needs to be lauded. You know, that they won the Challenge Cup final. They then took a game to Barcelona, which became the highest attended Super League fixture. I'm told that for their home playoff final, which is the first time that will have ever happened, they've already sold out. The corporate's gone, the hospitality's gone. It's the hottest ticket in Perpignan. And that is such a good news story at a time when it's been so difficult for the game that I just think we should all really, and we sort of mentioned it a bit last week, but now that they've had the shield presented, we should all take our hats off and throw them in the air and salute them. I think it's amazing. So they're rightly accorded what they've earned. We then get the dotted lines that show you know, who's in the playoffs and who isn't. And the conspiracy theorist in me says that there isn't a black block around Lee, which basically, and mathematically, they are relegated. Now, is that because somebody at Sky in the graphics department has forgotten to do that, or hasn't been told that that's what's happening, or should we be concerned that there is, you know, there's still this hint that it isn't cut and dried, that it's going to be decided in a court chamber with Judge Rinder deciding now on who gets relegated and who doesn't? Is it Rinder or Rinder? I've never seen him.
It took me so long to find a picture of
David
I could put next to him on that thing I did last night. It took me for ages to do that.
But to me, you know, their fate is sealed. And you know, I don't know a lot about football, but I think when a team gets relegated towards the end of their season, it's a big deal when their name is blanked out, because it's happened. You know, I don't get it. I just think the timing of what he said is extremely unhelpful. I think the reasoning behind what he's saying is flawed. The fact that he's going to see a barrister in Blackpool today about everybody signed an agreement knowing exactly what was at stake this year, and that it was going to be disrupted by COVID. And if Toulouse haven't played enough games, isn't that because part-time teams were told they couldn't and shouldn't travel to Toulouse? How is that Toulouse's problem? Every game they could possibly play, and even they have managed to play a couple over here that were their home games, so they've made the sacrifice. How can they be the point of his ire? I don't get it, and I don't really want this program to be about him anyway. But please, you know, somebody explain to me how unity is important, and there's an example of that. We might not have it in the way that it's been sold to us.
See, all these clubs who don't have programs now, their chairman, CEOs have to rant on the internet instead on their websites. So Lee won, Hull KR won, which, you know, as you said, the atmosphere really came across on TV. That was really great, and obviously they've done a
which again, you know, clearly they've declared that they've declared that the attendance was just less than 7,000, but it sounded like 55,000 when you were watching. That's what television want. They want an occasion. They want it to feel something special. They want that passion surrounded it, and it came over brilliantly. And I thought they played really well as well. Got a couple of serious injuries, unfortunately, but responded to starting pretty sluggishly and came away with the win.
And whether they make the playoffs or not, which of course we'll know at the end of this week, fair to say Hull KR have had a very good season on and off the field, and now they've got a new badge with these like scary Robin eyes thing, which I'm neither for or again, but it seems to be that rather than the Wigan one, which everyone went, oh, it's rubbish, most people in Hull KR world seem to like it. So that's the main thing. And
they're not Kingston Rovers anymore. They will carry the history of that, and that's great. But it is a more modern image. So you've got Hull FC, Hull KR. It makes sense. I think that rivalry is sellable now to people who don't know the sport, you know, on a regular basis. So yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I think it's all part of what they're doing to make themselves seem modern and relevant, and to attract a new audience and players. You know, I think Lachlan Coote going there next year is a massive statement of intent. Because clearly he is still at the top of his game, although banned for this week. He would have been rested anyway, so it doesn't matter. But they are moving in the right direction. They've got a progressive coach who plays a certain way. The way they handled the whole farewell to Mossy Massoy, lovely, brilliant. I think we do need to say that. I think we might have mentioned it last week. I can't remember. So much has happened in the week that I can't remember what we spoke about. But they were one of the people that went to Toronto, and they clearly came back and said, irrespective of what the Wolfpack are going through on the field, they've got something off it. And what Hull KR have done with changing the configuration of their ground and now putting in Craven Street, which again is a nice touch to history, because clearly that's where they used to play at their old stadium. It works. It's worked. Well done to them. And now they've even got somebody on the new strategic review panel in Paul Lakey.
Hull FC ought to give them their full name, Hull FC nil, in a nod to Stenhouse Muir fans from Scottish football. They're rubbish though, Hull FC. It's a shame. I'd wait for the playing on Friday, according to the paper. Against Hull in the final game of the season, which is always exciting because it's the game where David Fafita climbs on the post and stuff. So and everyone gets kits because they just throw them into the crowd. So a shame I'll miss that, but no, never mind. Catalan's lost to Huddersfield. Well done, the Giants. And Saints beat Leeds to secure second spot in the table. As you say, Alex Walmsley, what a performance.
Warrington won to secure third.
Yeah.
Wigan won to secure fourth. Walmsley was outstanding, and I get that clearly there were some young kids in the Leeds pack who will have benefited massively from the experience of playing against him. But when he is on that kind of form, it doesn't matter who he's playing. And was it 60 minutes he played for, 275 metres he made, 13 line breaks. Wow. Coming back from the absolute huge disappointment of their 1-point defeat that cost them the League Leaders' Shield the week before, it's all about response. And when you've got the likes of James Roby and Lewis Dodd to play off the back of that, because not only did he make those meters, but his play the ball is ridiculously quick. You've got Morgan Knowles alongside him doing pretty much the same thing, feeding off the back of it. And again, we shouldn't underestimate the service that he got. That James Roby's strength is giving. It's a bit like James Lowe's, that he gives the big man the right ball when he needs it, and put all that together and it works. So Saints have been brilliant this year against whoever they've played in that first half. it's very rare they've misfired. Warrington managed to stifle them at the TWS, but Saints' modus operandi is to start with intensity and blast teams out of the way. There was no better example of that than Walmsley in the first 20 minutes. It was a masterclass from a prop forward.
We've got attendance figures for all the games in Super League as well, which makes a change. Cass versus Warrington on Thursday. That could decide things. Leeds versus Hull KR on Friday. At the same time, Leeds are playing football at Newcastle. It's another bit of great timing. Yeah, I didn't know until Sky put an advert up saying, football's on this week. Watch football. Football. Leeds United, who you may have... They're rubbish there now. So,
All right. What we do know is that clearly if Castleford beat Warrington, then Leeds and Hull KR becomes a winner-takes-all shootout. If Castleford lose to Warrington, Leeds and Hull KR are playing for the right to go to Wigan or Warrington. That's excellent. How it's going to pan out.
Well, it's a good job. I'm working Friday, but I finished just in time. Well, it says 7:45 kickoff. I finished work at 8, so I should miss about 2 minutes of the game, so that's good. That's a Super League roundup done. Championship, where there was an average attendance this week of 1,258, because Whitehaven are the only ones who gave out an attendance. They beat Halifax 19-6. Swinton beat Sheffield 34-28. Sheffield fans all just glad to see the back of 2021 and Doncaster. Newcastle beat Oldham 38-24. That was looks like a tight game. Fev won at London 48-28. Dewsbury beat Batley 31-24, so bragging rights on that part of the Heavy Woolen district. And Widnes beat Bradford 10 points to 9 in a controversial game where they don't have a clock. Apparently that works at Widnes, and I might have upset some people on social media, but
only some people that needed upsetting. So again, that comes down to 2 games to decide who is in the playoffs. Whitehaven, who've been on a brilliant run, have got to get something from Bradford at the same time as London are at York. A really exciting end to the season. But big news coming out of London this evening. I say this evening, you don't know when people are going to listen to this or watch it, but this evening is Monday when we're recording it. That Jermaine Coleman, the coach of Jamaica, has moved across from the Scholars to the Broncos for next season. Interesting. Does that mean it's the promotion that Jermaine deserves? We've had him on the programme. We think he's a really good guy. He's clearly going places. Does that tell us anything about what he thinks is the prospects for the Scholars in future? He's taken over at a time when London have announced they're going back to being part-time. What does that tell us about the distributions that are coming through? Certain irony there that they're getting a new ground at Wimbledon, which is Super League ready, and they're going part-time. But that, for the excitement of London having a coach who we think can do things, concern about where that leaves Scholars, and obviously Tom Sang as well, who was elevated from the assistant coaching ranks when Danny Ward left, and you'd hope that he'd be a young coach on the conveyor belt. So interesting times in the capital, and if they do slip up and don't make the playoffs, then that could be a potential blow.
Yeah, they play York, don't they? Which is obviously going to be a big game, as you say, on Sunday. Saturday, Toulouse, the evil foreigners. We must throw them out of everything. They take on Newcastle and all the other games on Sunday.
And you'll be able to watch that on our league.
Oh, wonderful.
So Toulouse fans will actually be able to watch Toulouse play.
Wow. Our league seems to have, having had a summer off, seems to have... The NFL found some money behind the sofa to pay everyone or something for all these games they're showing. Good. Barrow beat West Wales 76-0. As you mentioned, T. Ritson, 7 tries in the game. First time ever happened for Barrow. Congratulations to him. And obviously it's been a rubbish year for West Wales, but that's a game they may have lost 100 and something 2 years ago, whatever, 3 years ago. So, I think I'm clutching at straws, but still.
No, I think the other thing about that was they could have called it off.
That's also true as well.
COVID issues. They were down to a very limited number of players that could travel, but they wanted to be there to ensure that Barrow had opposition to celebrate their promotion. I think they even loaned a couple of players from the Barrow amateur leagues to put on the bench. But no, the issue again about West Wales, about scholars, Coventry we've spoken about in some detail, and we're going to chat clearly to the head coach of Hunslet, is what's the future for these clubs? Because for, again, all this talk of unity, I keep seeing posts and we keep speaking to people who are in that division saying, could somebody please tell us what's happening? Which doesn't strike me as being particularly unified. The call from Carl Hall at Doncaster, who Hunslet face, for everybody to get round the table, you're sitting there slightly apart from it, merely assuming that that's the minimum that would have happened, and clearly it hasn't. And you're talking about Carl Hall, who is
just still got those chins. He's still got him, hasn't he? He's still got him. He's quite high up in the hierarchy of people who are very well thought of, and he's saying the organisation I was vice president of merely but a year ago is not including clubs like mine in their discussions of what's happening. So League One, and I'm glad we've got Hunslet on, not just to celebrate what they're doing this year by making the playoffs and where they may go, but actually gives us a chance to talk to Alan about what's he working with at the moment. What brief has he got? The wryest of wry smiles came across my face yesterday afternoon when news filtered through from the Keepmoat of their recent signing being sent off after 12 minutes. But there you go. Doncaster 26, Keighley 28. Guess he don't like me either, so I think that's. I'd have gone for the draw in that one. But Doncaster will face Hunslet on Sunday. North Wales beat London Scholars 44-0 on Saturday afternoon. Rochdale beat Coventry 50-22. Coventry celebrating 6 wins from 17 this year. I think they said it's one of their best seasons, if not their best, not having the records in front of me. And we'll see what happens. And it's endlessly frustrating. And the result I didn't mention was Workington 14, Hunslet 32, because as if by magic, here is us, and here down there is the coach of Hunslet, Alan Kilshaw. Alan, thank you for joining us. First of all, let's talk about the weekend, because Hunslet, you're in the playoffs. You win away, having been trailing at half-time at Workington. That must have been a performance you were very pleased with.
Yeah, definitely. It's been coming as well. We've had a couple of draws and just not been able to ice the games, and some good performances as well. But it's just challenging to win in a tough environment this week, and that's what it is. You go to Workington, there's a big crowd on, and you got to silence the crowd early, and any win in Cumbria is a good win. I think it was the third in 2015 as well, so it sets us up nicely now, because we'll be playing away, hopefully, for 3 weeks, in the playoffs.
And it's Doncaster you have first up. Should be a very interesting match.
Yeah, it'd be tough. Went there a couple of weeks ago and we won, but both teams had players missing. They just had a COVID outbreak, and so would we. So it'll be 2 different 17s, but there could have been worse places to go in terms of stadia and changing rooms and pitches. Nice wide pitch, and the changing rooms are good there. It's a really good ground, isn't it? So it'll suit us, suit our style of play, and looking forward to it. Yeah, it should be a great game, and seeing today it's being streamed as well. So hopefully get a good away following there and a good crowd on. But if you can't make it, it's a good thing that it's been shown on our league.
Coming in halfway through the season, what have you made of life at Hunslet?
It's difficult, isn't it, to come in, and obviously someone else been there who I respect, and Gary, a long time, and he'd done some good stuff with the lads as well, and just put my own take on things. So it's first time I've ever come in like this. So it's just making sure I'm not giving them too much information and drip feeding, things in, and probably fixing things up on the run as well. And a couple of times where we might have focused on defence for those 2 weeks, and that's been really good, but our attack's not, and then the other way around. So I think, like I say, I was pleased with yesterday because everything came together, and that will hopefully stand us in good stead coming into this knockout football.
First of what will be no doubt a number of stupid questions, but why in League One is it third against fourth and fifth against sixth?
I don't know. Because two not the highest ranked team now, so it's it's like top five. Is it an NRL thing? Is it an old system? There's been that many top five, top eights, top fours, top threes. I couldn't explain it, but the losers of 3 and 4, they get a second chance.
That'll
so they play
the
5 and 6 to get the week off. So yeah, that because of the ranking in the league, they've earned that.
Yours is an elimination game, and theirs is a qualifying one. There.
Yeah, and I can go into. We've played all our games. Other teams haven't. I don't know on a year when you're doing average points, not to have golden point. They've drawn 3 games, 2 with me, 3. So things like that you can question, and whether we're rightfully 6 or not. Obviously we're on the same wins and losses as Doncaster, so they lost the game because of COVID. We can go into all those things as well and permutations, but it is how it's landed. And fortunately, we had a draw at Rochdale the other week and kicked a goal after the hooter to draw the game, and Rochdale, it was between us and them, so that kick proved vital. Obviously went there yesterday with not having to win, but obviously we wanted to.
Looking at the league table and all the sides, first of all, congratulations to Barrow. Clearly, they've had a great season. Go up automatically. Big crowd there again yesterday, and I think we've been saying on this program, that they have got a template there in that division for how to attract crowds. But would you say there's not much of a muchness between the 5 of you that are now left? And clearly, your route is yours and Doncaster's is the toughest, but looking at the results this year, it is anyone's on any given day.
Yeah, I think all those 5 have beaten each other this season. I think Doncaster have beaten Worthington at Worthington, and Worthington beat Donny at Donny. We've beaten Worthington the same. We've drawn with Doncaster, beat them. Drawn with Keighley. Crusaders been on a great run, beating everyone. So, yeah, I think the games will be close. They'll be tight playoff games, and there's much more at stake now with everything that's coming out. Being in the Championship next year will be much more of a carrot than probably ever before.
How have you found facilities down at the John Charles Stadium? Because again, in terms of, I think, what you've been used to before, it's pretty much state of the art there.
Well, I think what's always good, especially at this level, is everything being on one site. So, sometimes other teams that they might do video in one room and then drive to the gym and then drive back to the field, and that just burns your time. Especially at getting in at 6:15, 6:30. So we've got the Phoenix Bar, obviously the club open on a match day, but we use that as our meeting room. That's got a screen in there. We do video in there. We have the gym on site, 2 gyms on site. There's a top field that we use, and we also train on our own pitch. Again, you don't always get that luxury, so we get 2 sessions a week on our own field. So fantastic facilities. We've got the track there. And then there's the swimming pool next door that they've not really used, and something that I've been asking, can we use it? And we had a couple of players go in there last week, rehabbing, but I think it was in the middle of swimming lessons, and there's no shallow end either, so we just got to work on that. But yeah, fantastic facility, and it's pretty accessible, isn't it? It's not a bad place to get to when you come off the motorway as well, which is always a bonus for trying to recruit players and getting training done on time.
Well, we'll talk about recruitment in a minute, because obviously that's something that's going to be tricky for many reasons. But when you left Rochdale at the end of 2018, did you think it would take this long to get back into coaching?
No, I didn't. Obviously, when I took that decision, I did have a couple of options, and I'm not going to go into it. A couple of things happened, and they didn't work out for whatever reason. And then I did a little bit of work with the New York bid with Ricky Wilby, so I was doing some stuff behind the scenes there. And then there was a season that ran, and obviously the COVID season, so that puts everything on. So it did seem longer than it should have been. But no, I didn't, and I thought I'd done a pretty decent job at Rochdale, myself and the players and the staff, and you never expect to go into a job, but I did meet a couple of clubs, and like I say, for whatever reason, those things sort of fell through, and one fell through really late in November, and then there's no other opportunity, so you're then in a position that you're waiting for someone to be sacked or to move on, and that's coaching, as bad as it sounds. And like I said, I think there's been 2 opportunities this year, Oldham and Hunslet. Unfortunately, I got the Hunslet job.
Yeah, we've talked plenty on this program about when a coach leaves their job for whatever reason, there are only a finite number of jobs out there. It must be a very competitive market to get back into.
Yeah, it is, and I've not got that ex-player name either, which I think sometimes goes against you, or a player retiring at a club. I always feel you don't see that as much now in the NRL, and you look at American football, they're all college coaches that they've never played before, and I know a coach said to me once, I've been drinking in pubs all my life, but I couldn't run one, and it's a bit similar to that, isn't it? If a player just retires and gets a job, and that's often frustrating, especially for me, and I know the coaches, but I started off in development at Warrington and did every age group and putting cones down, helping out, volunteering and working my way up that way. And I even paid my own airfare and went out to Australia for 3 years to further develop. And sometimes it's frustrating when you do see an ex-player get a job, or someone, Rochdale got promoted and we stayed in the Championship. I feel that was a pretty decent achievement. And then when you see other coaches, getting jobs before you, or not even considered for jobs, and because they played for that club or because they're an ex-player, that's a bit of a bugbear of mine. I always feel the best person for the job should get it. I'm not saying that ex-players don't make good coaches, because they do, and there's plenty of examples of that. But the ones who study and actually, it's like a new job and they work on it to be a coach, they're the better ones. And coaching and management. It's a lot different to playing, and sometimes, especially at this level, it's probably 80% man management more than tactical, and I'm sure it's the same at the higher levels as well.
It's a different ownership model at Hunslet as well. It's cooperative, fan-led as well. How does that affect you as a coach? And is it something clearly that you support or see as a way ahead maybe for clubs in League One, as no doubt we'll have to talk about that bigger picture soon?
Well, it was similar at Rochdale, and I don't want to talk Rochdale down, but I just feel Hunslet's model's better than that model. Obviously, Rochdale's gone away from that, but they've got some really good people on the board. It's really diverse. Got someone from Leeds Beckett University. Damien Irvine's on the board, used to be the chairman at Cronulla Shark. Neil Hampshire, who's been at the club a long time. The list is endless, and Phil Hodgson's doing the finance side of things. So they've got specialist people in different positions, and then got the general manager in Chris Shatton. So they've got, like I said, it's really diverse, and then it's a band of volunteers. Really, Chris is employed full part-time by the club to put it all together, and then like Peter Jarvis, who's a bit of a Hunslet legend as well, and Kenny, and they do so much behind the scenes. When I first come in, didn't realise how much they did, and when I actually came in, Kenny had just stepped down as chairman, and unfortunately he's come back in, but he was doing all the registrations. And when I came in, we had a bare 13. I had 4 or 5 out of COVID, and Kenny's running around and Jarbo's running around ringing Dennis Betts and people like that to get players in on loan. So what they do behind the scenes is remarkable, really. Some of them are retired and they're volunteers, and some of them have got jobs as well. I do like the model, I suppose, where sometimes it's tough because where you've got an owner, it might be, I need this much money for this player, or we need this, and the club isn't run like that, but they do have some good sponsors behind them who they can sometimes lend a hand or ask the question at least. And I think with the break in COVID, they really sorted the finances out. They sat down, realised where they were losing money or who they owed, and got the ducks in order, if you like, really organised, and like I say, approached people. And and got those people on the board, and they're always looking out for volunteers and people who want to invest the club and that invest in the club. And I've been really impressed, and I think the model does work really well for Hunslet.
Community game is really strong in the area as well. Traditionally, it has been some what we might call super clubs. There has been some question marks in the past as to whether the professional club has worked closely enough with those teams, whether the recruitment pathways come through. How have you found it? And is that something, again, that you're responsible for, trying to change, interested in developing?
Well, yeah, 100%. And you're always looking the way you get your players. And I think Hunslet's, the saying, it's that money ball sort of blueprint. I took 2 from Ulton, Harvey Whiteley and Reece Chapman-Smith when I first come in there, both playing now regular. I went to watch East Leeds and Parkside the other week, the Thursday night game, which was a good derby to watch, full-blooded derby, and that was interesting. And like I say, there's people with the ear to the ground, and Peter Jarvis is one, and he's gone out, and then there's people talking about lads all the time. It's always good to run your eye over them. And 2 Bobs, I had a good conversation with him. He's coaching East Leeds. Obviously, he's had a good career in the game as well, and he pushed a couple of lads my way to look at. So yeah, I think we do need to tap into that community game, and also lads who have come out of Leeds Academy. They don't sign many bad ones. It just might be a case that they're not ready for Super League, or they're not going to give them a full-time contract. So we're fortunate to have them in the area and players around in the area like that. And obviously seeing that story on the weekend, the kid who come out of Leeds, went to Parkside, ended up at York on loan, and then he's back in Leeds. That's a great story. And we want to be a successful club as high as we can, but we can also be a decent pathway back into the professional game for players who do fall out of it.
Now, despite that it may seem that I'm on Twitter 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it was happy serendipity. I saw your tweet on Friday after the RFL's steering group were announced for the future of the game. As you rightly pointed out, no one from League One seems to be on there, although the RFL may themselves say that they're looking after League One's interests. As a coach in that competition, for those who are not watching and listening to this podcast, you have to go back and watch Alan's facial expression there. For those who are involved in League One, and hopefully, of course, you'll be hoping that you're not involved in League One next season, but say the playoffs don't go your way, how do you see that competition looking in 2022?
Well, it'd be tough even with a crystal ball at the minute. Depends how many teams are in it. Let's look at the first problem. If they cut the travel budget and they're cutting the finances, are West Wales and Coventry going to be in that competition next year? Are London Scholars going to be able to survive? So if we do lose teams from the competition, are Ottawa going to come in? So that's another question. If we lose teams from the competition, I know our club have put forward a competition where Championship and League One merges and they play conferences, which wouldn't be a bad idea. And then obviously those teams would then compete to get in the Super League 2 if that's coming, which we believe to be. If that doesn't happen and it is I don't know how many teams are in the competition, I feel it's going to be more close to National Conference than Championship, and with the budget cuts and what you can pay players, but they're not paying massive amounts of money, but to sacrifice, be self-employed and you're going to knock off at 4 o'clock to get to training, or you're not going to work a Saturday so you're fresh for the Sunday. So they make plenty of sacrifices, and that money helps and it'll top them up. And some will rely on the money. Some will play because they need that money to pay bills as well. So there's all those things to think about. There's also the spectator side of things. Are they going to come and watch a competition that could be a dead rubber next season? What's there to play for? Again, if we had a sponsor now and said, "Oh, I'll make up the 50k or the 100k next season," would we take it? Would there be a point? Because what's the incentive to get promoted? But then there's going to be a Super League 2 and it's going to be the top 8 from the champ. So there's lots of questions that need answering, and we're in September. That's the problem. We don't know what the competitions look like next year. And when this started to break, the Championship clubs were quite vocal. But now they know what they're playing for. They're all trying to get in the top 8 next year, because then they'll be in Super League 2. So they're obviously circling the League One clubs. I've had players had offers from them, and listen, that's what it is. It's sport. It's dog eat dog. You can't knock those Championship clubs for it. But because they're sorted now, the League One clubs don't seem to have the voice that the Championship clubs have, and it's sort of a second or an afterthought now what's going to happen to the League One clubs. And my worry is that they're just going to try and survive. Year in, year out, they're just going to try and survive. But some of them, clubs without wealthy owners, but even the wealthy owners, again, are they going to invest in the clubs? They're going to invest in players when there's not much to play for. Let's spin it to next season. So the season after next, so what's that, 2023, when there is supposedly going to be 10 in Super League, 10 in the league below, and then everyone else in the third tier. If it's only one team up and there's around 16 teams in that league, again, are you going to fire all your bullets to try and get up? Because that's a big risk with just one team going up. And how that looks, is it first team up? Is it playoffs? So again, you're going to get a lot of teams who are just trying to survive instead of competing at the top end, and that's my worry for that competition.
I mean, there's 100 questions here, and I know that you've said that clearly recruiting players is an issue. How do you even offer anything other than a 3-month contract to anybody at the moment? But I just wanted to go back to the facilities that you've got, because I think that's quite important as well. Do you think that any decision on any club who plays in any of these tiers should be standards driven?
Well, yeah, I do, because it seems to be the goalposts get moved certain teams. I've been in the Championship to a couple of grounds. I'm not going to name them, but there's just there's some grounds, better amateur grounds, and they need to look everything into it: changing rooms, car parks, facilities, first aid, physio room, all that. There was one club, and it was like being a leisure centre. You 2 changing rooms. It was really cramped. Same with the pitch, and then you've had clubs being allowed to play at different grounds for years as well. So sometimes it's not through their fault either. Obviously, local councils and teams falling out, but there needs to be. It's a professional league, and there does need to be certain standards in place. Like I mentioned before, Doncaster's ground's brilliant. Crusaders have moved ground this year, and there's been nothing but praise for where they play. Like I say, Hunslet worked, and we went there yesterday. Good facilities as well. So those are sort of, I think, the blueprint, and that should be the minimum standard for the third tier. As you go up higher, then obviously that needs to be how many people can get in the ground, etc. And
you mentioned that you obviously acted in a park consultant way to New York and their bid, and clearly we don't actually know what's happening with them at the moment, but we're supposed to have Ottawa in League One next year. Again, how do you factor something? Well, are you a fan of expansion? I would imagine that your work with New York would answer that in the affirmative, but should we again be looking at bringing another team in when it's likely that a lot of teams are going to be on their way out?
Again, that's probably not for me to answer, but my spin on it and what I believe is they won't be playing in Ottawa next year. Not playing somewhere West Yorkshire or somewhere like that, which maybe you can understand in the current pandemic, but long term, are we going to get another Toronto scenario? Just going back on the New York bid, I know I worked on it, but I think it was it was a solid bid, and it would have been good for the game. But I feel what happened with Toronto didn't help it. It really hindered it, and Ottawa had already been given the the green light to come in. Like you say, we're losing clubs. Is there enough players to go around as well? That's another thing. That's another question. Where are we going to pick the players from? If they are based here, originally they spoke about developing their own players in a different model to Toronto. They're based over here and they are dual regging with a team or using loans, and that's going to shorten the player pool even more. And we've got reserve rugby back next year, which everyone's a fan of. But again, with all these teams and new teams, the player pool isn't as big, and it'll shorten with the budget cuts as well. So there's going to be so many things affected. You talk about the amateur game in the area. If I go and get 4 from East Leeds, 4 from Parkside, a couple from Alton, and then they can't put 2 teams out, then how's the relationship then with the professional club? So there's so many different questions and things that need managing. For me, I wouldn't put them in next year. But again, I know contracts have been signed, sponsorship deals, etc. So I don't know how far along the track they are. I am a fan of expansion, but if it's a fair playing field, I don't. I've been on a few trips away to Lose. At first was pretty rough where they house you and the food and things like that. But then that was fed back, and then they were outstanding how they looked after you. Probably looked after you too well. The players were on the buffet too much. The Toronto, when I went with Rochdale, they were in the championship, and where we were based and the food and everything wasn't as good. Expansion teams, obviously they have to be full-time. Putting full-time teams in League One and Championship with massive budgets, is that a fair playing field? I know we've got to go through the league. So again, lots of questions. From a coach point of view, it's tough, obviously, when you're coaching against them, but if you're with them, obviously it's good because you're winning most weeks. And it was just, I think it was a shame really on Toronto. It was a great experience when we went off the field, and you look at the clubs now. You mentioned Barrow before. It's that template. Hull KR the other day, I saw a picture and everyone, the marquee behind the post. So, Toronto have brought that. I know it'll be difficult in February and March to do that, but that experience, the playing side of things and being in that ground and the party, if you like, after was the future really of rugby league and attracting new people to the game.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of beer gardens in 2022, whatever we get from rugby league. And I guess, is it a frustration because 18 months ago when the pandemic started and the first lockdown and rugby league outside of Super League came to its swift halt, we said on this program many times how it was a great opportunity for the sport to have a real look at what was going on in the future. And it seems we just left it until the last minute. And you at the coalface are there not having a clue what you can do next year. We put into your playing squad.
Well, that's what, like I say, I just mentioned then about Hunslet. They used the time well. They got their act together, and they weren't doing Zoom quizzes and what everyone else was doing, and they were getting the club in order. So if a part-time club who's run by volunteers can do that, then surely a governing body and Super League and whoever can get together and put a plan in place and use that time. But it was probably more firefighting at the time and short term, and we've never been in that situation before, have we? So it's hard to criticise, but to leave it so late to get to September, and I was speaking to Gareth Walker the day in the League Express, lads have got Christmas coming up and things like that, and and they go away. They can't go away in season. They're playing every week, so might have a holiday in October or whatever it may be, and they don't know what's coming in next year. So yeah, to leave it so late, it's frustrating and it's disappointing. And when we're going to get the answer, the other thing is whoever goes up from the championship, from the League One, so whoever goes up in these playoffs, they're going to be 5 weeks behind recruitment than everyone else. Well, not everyone else, 5 weeks behind Barrow, because Barrow have gone up now, so they can, and they'll have plans in place. And they probably a couple of weeks ago thought they were open, they could make plans. The rest of the team, a little bit of a jeopardy. So what players are going to be left? Like I say, the Championship clubs knew whoever Swinton and Oldham were pretty much relegated from 3-4 weeks ago. They knew they were in that league, and if you look, the Championship clubs are recruiting players, they're announcing players. They're all wanting to be in that top 8 next year and be in Super League 2. But whoever goes up in these playoffs, again, you're going to go in second lowest funding and trying to recruit a squad to be in that top 8, because otherwise you're going to be in the third tier. So it makes things very, very difficult for a coach, for administrators, for whoever it may be at this level, not having a clear picture of where you're going to be. Obviously, there's always a bit of jeopardy because you have finals and playoffs, etc. But like I said before, you usually go in, this is your League One offer, this is your Championship offer, or if we're a go up, we're not going to keep you next year. And it might be speaking to other players at other Championship clubs, if we go up, this is your offer. We've not been able to do that.
You mentioned some Leeds Academy players like Harvey Whiteley who've done a job for you since you got them in. It raises a perennial question, and I'm sure you do now, having been there, that you understand the rivalry between the north and south of the city. But is there a place for, and so it's like using the M word, a feeder club mentality, that the two clubs can work closer together, and that some of the exciting young talent at Leeds, be it either young players who need more development or, as you say, those that have been spun out of the system, can actually find an identity with Hunslet? Because I know that, with the greatest respect to some of your older fan base, they don't accept that and never will. But is that another area that we've got to look to break down if the sport's going to move forward in some form of unity?
Yeah, it could be. I was very fortunate to work with the Mackay Cutters in Australia, and they was partnered with the North Queensland Cowboys. So we used to get players from them on a midweek. So they'd be with us to 2 sessions, and then we'd play. And one of those was Jason Tamalalo at the time, Michael Morgan, and look how they've gone on. Dual Reg at Warrington when I was with Rochdale, worked really well. I had a good relationship with Tony Smith. He gave us the players for a couple of sessions. But we've also had other dual reg where it's not worked, where you can only play them for 40 minutes. You can only have them, they can't train, turning up in their tracksuit, things like that. So if I'm a Hunslet fan and in the bar after the game and someone's just played well and he's in his Leeds tracksuit, it's not a good look, is it? And that, so I think it is a good idea. Like say, if they're in League One or Championship, you need to give those players an opportunity. I know a kid playing at Donny now, is it Tyndall from Leeds, and he's playing really well. And I spoke to Rich Agar about him a couple of weeks into the job. But, we were pretty stacked for outside backs, and Rich said, he wants his players playing against men, and I think that's the way to go. Obviously, you're doing well in academy. The next challenge is playing against men, and it's different at League One and Championship level. It's a different type of physicality. The Super League's quicker, but there's a bit more on the floor and a bit more things that will probably get missed by the match officials or let go in the lower league than it is a Super League. So it toughens them up, and it is a good breeding ground. And going back to the Queensland Cup, that does that job for the NRL teams. That's why they're all partnered with teams over there, and it works well. The problem is the Mackay Cutters are never going to play the North Queensland Cowboys. Leeds Rhinos might play the Hunslet, Hunslet RLC. So I can see the arguments for and the arguments against. But for me, if it's a quality player and it's going to improve your team and it's done in the right way, where they're not just coming in for 1 week and then someone else the next, which we've seen. I am a big advocate of it, and I do like working with young players, and especially at that level. And like you say, if the recruitment is getting tougher and there isn't the pot, if those bigger Super League clubs do look after the other teams by making the players available, and like you say, for a couple of sessions a week in a game, not just a team run or not just turning up on a game day. And then there is some sort of working together. I know it sounds funny, but to get him a tracksuit or to get him a polo, who's gonna pay for that? And from a Hunslet point of view, I know it sounds petty, but a tracksuit might be the difference between having a physio there on a Friday night because all the money's on the field. So if there's opportunities there where like Leeds may sponsor X amount of polo shirts, tracksuits for the players coming down, it would just look better, I feel, and be more accepted by the Leeds fans. That's by the Hunslet fans. That's something visible, but it's something to consider as well. And I think it's just little things like that that probably put people off dual reg and loans in the past. If it's done in the right way, I'm all for it.
Time's running out as ever. Phil, have you got anything left to ask?
Yeah, have you had a pint in the Garden Gate yet?
No. But if we get promoted, you can buy me one in there.
Well, I would gladly buy you one. But again, a lot of the history of the Hunslet Club is housed in there. It's a wonderful rugby league pub, and I can only heartily recommend it. Okay,
I'll maybe Jarvo will take me there. He probably knows.
Jarvo lives there.
Oh, there we go.
Well,
did he used to run it?
Yeah.
Did he used to run?
Yeah, it's his second home.
Okay. Pint of vodka.
Get him to take you down there. But I'll gladly stand you a drink.
Okay, yeah, I look forward to
that. Alan, thank you very much for your time. Best of luck on Sunday and hopefully for the rest of the season ongoing. And for the future, whatever that will be. And fingers crossed there is one, he says.
I hope so. I've just got back in the game.
I'll tell you what's depressing, Phil. He says, going straight into the second part of the program, well, third part for you, is when people your age retire as players, you think, well, that's it now, that's it. When the coaches are younger than you, as Alan Kilshaw is, I think, what am I doing? What's going on in rugby league? I think we learned a lot from the half an hour we had with Alan Kilshaw, Phil, especially about what might be happening in the future, which no one knows, but maybe Derek's found that £35 million for Super League 2 because they pay Super League 2. It's like HS2, it's coming. We can't stop it. We can't stop it now. It's going to happen.
Well, the strategic review panel have already carried out their review, clearly, because whilst they're looking at all the options, it would appear that a coach of a club in the third tier has confirmed that it is going to 20 teams, 2 divisions of 10.
And the third tier, it sounded like. So, but what that third tier, yeah.
A third unfunded tier, because as he said, it sounds like it's going to be a super community club. I think that's what the feedback we got from Alan Robinson at Coventry as well, that it almost takes them back to the days of the Rugby League Conference. If only that hadn't been disbanded. Who knows? But yeah, the concern is too many people are talking as though decisions have been made, whereas the RFL are telling us we've just appointed a group to make some decisions. And again, I think that's the flaw. Really interesting gauging the reaction to the announcement of the 6 names in the strategic review who are going to take us forward. I would take issue with the lyrics of F.R. David, the one for the teenagers there. Words, in fact, do come easy, and the proof of the pudding is going to be, as ever, in its baking, ingredients, and eating.
How many groups have we got going on at the minute?
Well, we've got a strategic review group. We've got a realignment group.
Because I'm just reading the paper. There's one here with Gary Hetherington. There's one without him in. It's like I'm confused. What's going on?
But there's also the RFL are having a strategy review as well. So there's at least 3 groups of people. But obviously we've had to reflect this in the new issue of Forty20 magazine out on Friday. Again, the clear issue that is dividing people is how do you get something that is radical, new, and significantly different, which is what Ken Davies said we were getting, and the appointment of people who are not radically and significantly different. And that is not in any way to detract from the ability of the people who are on it, but are they not the same people that have just delivered us to where we are now. And again, to drop in a popular music combo reference, when hearing who the people were, I was immediately taken to the lyrics of The Who's Won't Get Fooled Again. And it's all there. The old boss is the same as the new boss. But there is skepticism with the watching public that is it just the civil war has switched? And I think if we stand apart from the people who are involved, the Rugby League looked a certain way with certain influence at the time Super League decided they wanted to break that influence and go independent. And the people that wanted to carry out that, for want of a better word, revolution, decided that it was going to be their determination of where we were going, how we were going, and who they were going to go with. 3 years later, we're talking about realignment, and all of a sudden, we've gone back to the people who were isolated 3 years ago, who are now back in the seat of power with the support of a couple of clubs who've gone from one side of the court back to the other. So what has really changed? And if it is just shifting the seats around the table of decision making, where is the external thought that is going to make us different? And if Alan is right, and Alan, through the people that he deals with and what he may have been told in terms of how the league is going to look, and it's already been decided that we've got the 2 divisions of 10, we're going down a very dangerous road. The other thing pointed out by Brian Noble in is, if this is an advisory board, isn't that what the RFL are? So are the advisory board now got their own advisory board?
I don't know what's
too many questions. I mean, the one thing that Ralph Rimmer stressed in his interview to the media, which, if you really want the full recorded transcript, is available in our trade newspapers, various other sources. I mean, you want to know every word.
If you zoom in on the picture,
he sounded rarely, he sounded positive that, we've got the mandate and we're moving ahead, and it's the dawn of a new era. And then you hear from Alan that actually it might not be the dawn of a new era. We might actually be implementing what's already been decided. So
it's not an 80-seat majority to do whatever you want with, is it? And then not do whatever you want.
Well, again, if you scratch the surface of what we were told, and then we went into a press conference without really being able to fully take on board what we've been told, there are 6 people on that strategic advisory review, all singing, all dancing board. 4 of them are from Super League and 2 are from the RFL. So again, if it gets to the point sat round that table that there is slight disagreement as to which direction we go, and all the Super League decide that's the direction we're going, is it just Super League exerting its power by another means? The other thing as well is, if it's a board that has the power to suggest where the game is going, if we don't change the governance of the sport, will it end up in front of 12 Super League chairman owners, the RFL who have 1 vote, Simon Johnson has 1 vote, the cleaner, when she comes in on a Thursday, has 1 vote. But if the Super League still have the majority of votes, and this is recommendations, is it still not what Super League want? What we do know is that all of the properties are going to be put in one place and marketed together. But that's what we used to have. Why did we stop doing that? That was the perfect way to sell. So the people who have been employed under the banner of Super League will get all the properties to sell as a commercial arm of the RFL. That's what we sort of had and could have had without spending £5 million. And, if that's the realignment, then we should never have been unaligned in the first place. It's not new. If Derek Bowen is going to sue at the prospect of Toulouse coming up, then we haven't solved any of the fundamental key problems that we need to make the game look different. It's going to become a horrible bun fight in 2022. Because teams are going to spend a lot of money they don't have to try and get to a place where perhaps they shouldn't even be. And that, again, is fundamental about how do we look. The reason I asked Alan whether the facilities he had at Hunslet meant that that's one of the areas that should be decided upon which clubs are in, which clubs are out. It can't solely be done on what you do on the field in any given year if you're serious about the sport looking different.
How are they going to market Super League 2? It's like Super League, but the teams are not as good as the other one. Super
League Light. Alcohol-free. I don't know how they're going to do it, because clearly it's not solving the issues of how do you get an equal resource that makes, one of the other things Ken Davies said, which I categorically disagree with, is that he doesn't think the parachute payment is sufficient for clubs leaving Super League, and that they need to have a softer landing in whatever Super League 2 is. If we're trying to create a system whereby whoever gets relegated comes straight back up again, we're not solving the problems of what the sport. I think it's fantastic that, having said in the first part of the programme, really concerned about London going part-time and what is the sports strategy for the capital. Everybody says it's really important we have a big presence in the capital. If we're going to support their academy, and every one of their academy players then ends up either playing for another Super League team or worse, rugby union, then why are we throwing money that we don't have into a bottomless pit that doesn't give us any return? But it's great that Newcastle are looking to go full-time and are already trying to pick off some Super League players to play for them. But, if they're doing that and they're investing in that, how does that work with the overall scheme of what we're trying to achieve Rugby League looks like? And if the 10 teams that we're going to get in Super League are going to keep the majority of the money and give more money to the team that drops out on any given year, how do Newcastle get into the top 10? And, do we not need to make some decisions on what we want to look? But I mentioned Ottawa to Alan, partly because none of us have the answer. And I wasn't trying for him to tell us something that he doesn't know. It's more that there's another little speck on the horizon that has to fit in somehow or somewhere. And are we going to, again, give them some money not to play in 2022 or 23? Because they've got a license. They bought Hemmel's right to be in that competition. They have signed a contract that says they are going to be in it. So we're either going to have to pay them not to be in it, or they're going to be in it playing out of Bradford, we've heard, on a dual reg deal with Bradford. Where does that move the game forward, and how? These are the things that you need decisions on, not a strategic board making recommendations. So we will hopefully we might get some senior people from the RFL that are going to answer some of these questions on this very podcast in the not too distant future. But I am concerned, as indeed I think a lot of people are, who think that the usual suspects are involved in making the decisions, and that's not what we want. And that's nothing to detract in any way from their ability to make a contribution to the sport. But this isn't an independent commission. This isn't people from the outside looking in. Again, as I think Mr. Noble says in his piece, if the sport had gone to Eddie Hearn and said, we 100% understand that you don't want an involvement in our sport without full control over it, we're not here to give you full control over it, what we are prepared to do is pay you a sum of money for 3 weeks of your time, whereas we want you to analyse rugby league in the same way that you've revamped boxing, snooker and darts. We want you to give us 12 things that you need this sport to do, and we are mandating ourselves to implement them. Then I would feel happier than a board of 6 people who have got a vested interest in how the sport moves forward.
And why those people with vested interest and not people with vested interest elsewhere? Why those clubs are chosen and not?
I'm told that the 4 Super League people who are on the board have been nominated by Super League.
Oh, right. Because it's interesting because
Although I don't know whether they asked Derek.
Well, they didn't ask Wakefield, apparently, because a Twitter account asked John Minars, the chairman of Wakefield, if they'd been asked to be on this board, and they said no. Didn't know anything about it. So,
which again,
Ken's men. Ken.
Unity.
Yeah, Ken. Robert Elson did. I mean, I don't know how long's left on those the lease on those offices in that swanky part of Manchester, but when we got invited there when they opened, and we had the presentation about how the Super League was going to be rebranded, which I think you have to say is a success. It is slightly galling that Super League spent all this money on this great branding and stuff, and then half the clubs don't use the bloody stuff they've been provided with. What kind of unity is that? But there you go.
Well, again, I think the other issues are clearly along the lines of what kind of influence can this review group have over international fixtures, over revamping and reinvigorating the Challenge Cup, which clearly the early rounds are going to be, at the beginning of the season again. How is that going to work? They're looking at competitions and structures, but how does it fit into the areas that theoretically they don't have any control over? Are this group going to sit there and go, I am absolutely happy for all of our clubs to lose 6 of their current fixtures so that we can have an international weekend, and we are prepared, to release more players than ever to have international fixtures at the end of every year? Can they do that? Do they want to do that? How does that fit? How do you get all the pieces of the jigsaw to fit together?
Bad news is for Super League 2 is that Premier Sports have just signed a TV deal with the Elite League Ice Hockey, so that's one place that might be out of contention, because we've got this other TV deal coming. There's the secondary deal that's Gary Carter wrote about, that is with somebody which we don't know who yet. And then the Super League 2 might have a separate TV deal, which I can't see happening. But
again, there are 2 things on that. One is a 7-figure deal. That doesn't seem like a lot for 10 fixtures to me.
Include pennies.
The other thing, and I don't know how relevant it is, because clearly it's whatever's written in your contract at the time. Probably like you, I got swept up by the Emma Raducanu story. We did watch the final on Saturday night on Channel 4. Me and the good lady were absolutely captivated, not only by the standard of tennis, but the eloquence of both participants afterwards in the way that they spoke. We would otherwise have completely missed that was happening, because we don't subscribe to the station it was on. But somebody very cleverly did a deal to get the big final on a terrestrial channel. Now, again, did this group have the chance to go to Sky as part of their remit, going to Sky and saying, look, from 2023, we want the grand final on, or the right to negotiate for the grand final to be on Channel 5. So that, you've still got it. You've got all the build-up. You get all the post-match interviews. You get your logo plastered and branded. There was absolutely no doubt that that final was on Amazon Prime, and that all of the every time they could mention Amazon Prime they did, and even had the foresight to thank Channel 4. But we're now carrying on Amazon Prime. Brilliant, but clearly somebody has done a very, very clever deal there to get the best of both worlds. We need to do that. But do this group have are they now negotiating with Sky from 2024 onwards, or whoever, whatever our media presence is, these 10 games that we've got that are going to be shown for what doesn't seem like a huge amount of money if you divide the number of games by the amount of pennies, and you then factor in who's going to pay the production costs. And we can't quite get a deal for France at the moment. We haven't been able to. So how's that going to work? And all of that, is that all going to come under this remit? Because if it doesn't, what value does it have?
Well, the Super League wheelchair Super League grand final is on telly this week, which is amazing.
Hoping to go
on Sky on Sunday.
Hoping
Leeds
to be
versus
there.
Leyland. I'll look for you in the crowd. I'll wave. So that's good, because again, I know it's people pointing out to me, well, it's not on the BBC, it's not free to air. Yeah, but not everything can be. But
No,
the Super League brand is with Sky, and they're going to. Sky, when they have something, do it to a level which is usually the best out there.
I think the other thing about that is it's also a precursor to the BBC showing the wheelchair for the World Cup. So, having multiple providers is what we're saying. And I think it works. I think we had the we had the BBC doing the international and the Challenge Cup final. We've got Sky doing the grand final. We've got the BBC doing the World Cup. To me, this is absolutely the way you sell a variant of your sport. And this is what I mean. We need more of this coordinated approach.
Well, it's better than them just being on our league, which you have to make an effort to actually stumble upon. And the women's semi-finals will also be on Sky. A double header at the Totally Wicked Stadium, which means I can just watch at home and don't have to go. It's great.
Which again, one of the teams, i.e. the one that comes second, assuming that St Helens are top, and I think they will be, is giving up home advantage in a semi-final. And we shouldn't, again, look past that. That again, is people within the women's game that are prepared to look at the bigger, wider picture. I think that's fantastic. The final is at Headingley, and the good thing about that is Leeds don't really play at Headingley. Their ground is Wheatwood, so it's the right stage to be having a final on.
Leeds were good yesterday, 28-10 against Wigan. Don't think they ever got out of first gear necessarily, but they won.
Somebody's birthday weekend as well.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. I can't believe they gave out her age on commentary. That was a bit harsh of Kyle Amor.
Rather than her shirt number.
Yeah, I mean, he got it wrong. I thought she was 25, but apparently not. St Helens top because they beat Cass 50 points to 6. Massive game this week because the winner of York versus Castleford, which is after the whoever York men are playing. Not London. No. Yeah. That's at the main event on Sunday there at the LNER Stadium. So winners of that will play Leeds, which is the semi-final you would want, because you wouldn't want to play St Helens in the semi-final, not because they're at home, but because they're the best team in the competition. So massive, and obviously Castleford versus York is a massive fixture anyway, as we know for other reasons. That's really the game they should show this weekend. I don't know if they can show it on Twitch or not, but that's a game they should show for many and various. Wigan are out of it. Brilliantly, of course. By the time you listen to this, you might know the result already, but Bradford play Wakefield on Tuesday night. If Wakefield win, we're in the semi-finals, and we've won 0 games in the league all season. So
that sounds like the 1997 World Club Championship.
Yeah,
we had to have quarterfinals in each hemisphere. So Australian teams were missing out who'd won 2 of their 3 games, and British teams were getting in there who hadn't won. No,
we are Tulsan Tollet and London Broncos. That is us. We are going to beat Bradford on Tuesday. And obviously, if you've heard this already, you know what the score is. And then we're going to beat whoever in the semis, and we're going to win the Shield. No pressure, ladies. Especially when the Wakefield end of season party's the night before. No pressure at all now. Fev 4 from 4. They beat Warrington away from home. They'll be the favourites to win the Shield. And they win the first grand final in the Super League era, soft launch. So, they and Bradford win that final. They could be in the Shield final, which I guess is say something about how the game has grown and contracted in some ways. It is, yeah, Headingley, I believe. I don't know if Sky is showing the Shield as well.
At the same time as the League One Grand Final?
Yeah, well, I assume so. I don't know. It would make sense, wouldn't it? But we'll be there. We'll be there and get all the post-match if we can, if we're allowed. So, But I don't know if I'm in the tent or outside the tent, but I know I'm still doing what you're supposed to do when you're in a tent. So that's all exciting. Final round of fixtures this week, then the semi-finals. And as I say, semi-finals on Sky. Again, that's great.
Brilliant.
As much as we all like our league and Twitch and whatever, there's a level of credibility you get from being on actual television and the fact that there's more games on there.
It's also about building an event. So if Sky is showing the grand final and they've got the footage and the stories and the identification of some of the personalities from the semi-finals, then it just makes the final a bigger and a better occasion. And also, I think we need to provide a certain amount of matches for Sky to fulfil our contract. And if we've lost some COVID games, and if we can give them women's matches and wheelchair matches, again, forgive me for laughing. I'm of an age where we've seen and heard it all. On the media call with Ken Davey, which preceded clearly the one with Ralph Rimmer, we were told by Super League that they were really, really happy with the television viewing figures this year, that they were up 10%, and that the figures were up 25% on what they were 5 years ago. There's a real consistency in the product, to which the question should have been, well, why the hell are they giving us 40% less money? So again, you pay. Well, we pay our money and take our choice as to what we believe. But all of these questions, hopefully, we will at some point get answers to. Well, for those that think the media acquiesce, and I've seen some people on Twitter that do think that. Believe me,
hi Andrew.
We ask questions. We may not always get either A, an answer, or B, the answer you like. But I think if you've read the magazine over the last 5 years, if you've listened to this podcast, you may wish to label us negative, but actually I think you'll find that that's us asking the questions.
Super League very much, and all the rugby league clubs, very much like the rugby league media, not unity, no unity. I don't know. Well, we'll be back maybe at some point in midweek. Who knows? If not, we'll certainly be back on Monday, barring any plastering issues. But the magazine is out this week.
It is, and again, it tries to reflect the broad range of opinion across the game with what is happening. Not just reporting it, but commenting on it, and there's some good stuff in it. I don't mean to say there is some good stuff in there. There's some considered writing, which if people want hopefully a balanced and constructive view of where the sport is, I might suggest you read it.
And there's the bits at the back which are the more frivolous end of things. I can't remember what I wrote about this month. I know I wrote the Paralympics. Yeah.
Television awards.
Yes.
You've written about the NTAs.
Yeah. I didn't watch them. I left my bit about them until afterwards because obviously I needed to know the result. But when I went through and looked at some of the previous winners and nominees, I thought, they always say, TV was much better. No, it was crap in the 90s as well. The TV is rubbish. Super League 2.
It's just music that was better in the 70s.
Super League 2 is going to be like, Radio 1. You start on Radio 1, then you end up on Radio 2. Even though Radio 2 is more popular, obviously Super League 2 won't be. But all the DJs from Radio 1 will get too old. They're going to be on Radio 2. So it's all the teams you remember when they were good.
All the players
who
were doing big things. And they're now going to be
Huddersfield. All these teams that used to be good. Here they are on Radio 2. But who is Ken Bruce? We'll find out. I don't know. This analogy is not working. It really isn't. I'm going to stop it there. We're more like actually crap local radio is going to be Super League 2. And League 1's going to be non-existent. So that is local radio. I hope not. I hope we can find a way of... I know the system we have at the moment isn't perfect, but it provides opportunity. And we need to provide opportunity.
Again, contraction is not what the sport needs to move forward. It needs to be inclusive of every element that can make a contribution to the sport. And just lopping off 16 teams, however you do that, I don't think is the recipe for future growth.
Because there's never been any potential athletes from Wales, London, the Midlands.
They can't play. They can't play rugby league, for goodness' sake.
All the best people have always been from Hunslet, because Belle Isle. We know that for sure. We'll be back. I've voted for the Rugby League Writers and Broadcasters Player of the Year as well. So I've sent my voting already.
Have you? Have they asked for it yet?
Yeah, I sent an email through yesterday. So I've voted. Vote early and vote often. I'll set up a lot of email addresses and stuff to ballot box. If Mason Lino doesn't win, no, but Sam Tompkins do. Because if Sam Tompkins, as we said last week, doesn't win Man of Steel, then well, I'm not going to ask Ellery Hanley, but somebody else can. He's not coming on the show, is he?
He's our special guest. Come in.
The Pearl, he's here. He's not. But we might be back later in the week. So stay tuned for that. Keep your eyes on social media. Like, subscribe, share, do all those things you're supposed to do that you don't. And buy the magazine. That's the most important one because that's money. So that's important. But tell all of your friends, and we'll see you next time here for another exciting edition. Well, we might be actually live next Monday of this 4020 Rugby League podcast thing.